I said, if I was the Prime Minister, if I was PV Narasimha Rao, I would have rebuilt Babri Masjid brick by brick. If the government gives a fraction of that money to Hindu causes, right, I don't think anybody should grudge it. As I say, never mix politics with science, because all you will then end up with is political science. Very few, if at all, prime ministers have been as dictatorial and fascist as Nehru. BJP is no more or no less fascist as any other party. Did any journalist in the last 4 years ask Rahul Gandhi, these 3 laws were in your manifesto? All what this government has done is actually fructify the promises and policies of
that
the Congress
had made.
और मार इनको पड़ती है.
How would you define yourself? As a conservative or as a liberal? Same double engine government was there in Manipur.
Right. So, first of all, I would, not that I know you are interviewing me, but I think it's always good, someone in college said, it's an interview. So, it's I'm also permitted to ask your opinions. Do you think 370 should have been abrogated?
Hello guys, and welcome back to AP Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in, and if you are a new listener, please make sure you subscribe to us and like the video, because we put a hell lot of effort in making these podcasts possible, and we upload every Saturday at 7 p.m. And guys, talking about today's episode, honestly, I feel very proud that I could get this opportunity so early in my life to meet such a robust person. Well, today's guest is none other than Anand Ranganathan sir. Anand Ranganathan sir is someone who is surrounded by controversies because of his views about India, Bharat, Hindutva, BJP. So this podcast, I think, is a must for any individual who specifically thinks that Anand sir is someone who belongs to the right, or is someone who is very critical about the right-wing politics that is happening in our country, especially the governing body that we are being governed by, that's BJP. If you are someone who is very critical about BJP, I think this podcast is a must for you. And apart from that, to all dear Gen Z people who are watching us, I hope that this podcast is going to help you in forming sound opinions about politics. So, without wasting any of your precious time, let's directly roll in to podcast. So, AP Podcast starting in 3, 2, 1. First of all, Anand sir, thank you so much for coming on AP Podcast, and thank you so much for giving such a unique location.
Really? This is the only location I know, so it's a pleasure having you. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Would really, the moment I entered here, I was imagining that in a science tech savvy location, how a political discussion is going to be. So,
but as I say, never mix politics with science, because all you will then end up with is political science.
Oh, that was a very good one. So, Anand, speaking about that only political science, since you bought that, I would really like to know your thing about politics. As in, you are somebody who belongs to the scientific niche, or someone who was a research scholar in terms of science. Then how did this political thing came up? Because people genuinely say that politics or science ekdam alag cheeze hai.
Yes.
How did that thing happen with you?
Primarily this is my day job, and when the sun goes down, I dabble in other stuff. And I think it's important for the upkeep of my gray cells, as I call it, because science, the whole process, there is a lot of frustrations, drudgery, the whole, it can take years for the experiments to succeed and results to come, and so it can be very frustrating. It's always a good idea to straddle 2 stools. You might fall in between them, but at least it's good to take your focus and attention away from something that you do day in and day out, and then put on something else, so that you can be. It's to be distracted and be a jack of all trades is good. Let's put it that way. So. It was just through accident that I think it was year 2000, that I wrote a page as a flash, and that turned out to be the first page of my first novel.
This was for which blog?
No, so this was my first novel that was ultimately published in 2012. And I wrote the first page in 2000, and I kind of liked it, and I was like, completely away from science, and I think that kind of appealed to me as well. But then I was not. I knew even at that point of time that I should not be the judge of whether this what I have written is good or not. But then who should be the judge? It's very abstract thing, you know. People in science, it's not abstract. If it's a great idea, then it is a great idea. It'll be appreciated and it'll be revolutionary. But an art is in the eye of the beholder, you know.
Definitely.
So people may appreciate Picasso's painting or Naipaul's books or Rushdie's books. Some may hate it, as is the truth. So art, I mean, the appreciation of art itself is very subjective. So I thought, well, I mean, let me be the best judge. And so for the next 10 years, I just read great literature.
About politics.
No, nothing to do with politics till now. But of course, there are many books that are very great political and ideological, tones and intonations, you may call it. Some great literature has been written concerning politics. So I read that. And then after 10 years, 10 odd years, I said, okay, now I'm in a position to judge my writing. So I revisited my page and I thought, well, yeah, okay, this is decent enough. That came out as my first book. And then one thing led to another. I started writing articles. At that point of time, Madhu Trehan, who was a very famous journalist, had started this news laundry. So she was looking for writers, and then one thing led to another. And then I wrote for Madhu's News Laundry for about 6 years on a lot of topics. That's how I started writing on politics and current affairs and all that stuff. So that's the journey.
Your seed for this political aspect, like we all have that seed ingrained in us.
Yes.
That thing that actually paves the way for our roots or our thoughts to develop in this field.
Yeah.
What was it for you?
So I think it was, to be very honest with you, it was to be distracted from my proper job, to kind of take my mind away from, as I said, from the frustrations that are inevitable in any job. I mean, it's not just science. You talk to, and now I have a lot of friends who are journalists and other domains as well. Every job brings along with it its own frustrations and, things you would like to do, but you're unable to, or things go wrong and things take time. All those things that happen in every science is no different. So this gave me an avenue. That seed you're talking about is to move away, not to focus every aspect of my being or my energy on just one domain.
But not left or right politics was something that was attracting you.
Well, I mean, and I've written about this. This people ask, that, and in fact, they find it very difficult to pigeonhole me. Whether I'm leftist or rightist, we are in JNU, for heaven's sake. But and I always say, I quote that line from Three Idiots, "मैं साइंस की तरफ से हूँ." Because
Still?
I think,
Even when you are giving political opinions?
yes, absolutely, and I think when I say science की तरफ से हूँ, I just don't mean that I'm going to rattle out a scientific formula or an equation when I'm talking about politics. No, I think I try and bring the fundamentals of what science teaches us into the other domain when we are discussing it. And the first thing that science teaches you, in fact, first couple of things that by training we are taught as scientists, is that is there a prior citation? Has somebody else done this? If somebody else has done it, then you must quote that person. That comes by training. So I don't want my students to spend 4 years researching something that we did not check was already done in 1980s. That is, it would be so embarrassing. Beyond embarrassing, it'll be such a waste of resources, time, and everything. So the first thing is you do literature search and you find out if such a thing has been done before. And the second thing is you bring ruthless objectivity, because if you do not objectively judge your own work, you might end up failing or repeating failed experiments. You see that in politics all the time. People repeat failed experiments. Socialism is one, freebie culture. I mean, the list is endless, because you want to gain for, a few votes and whatever it may be.
How about fascism?
Sorry, say that again.
How about fascism?
Yes.
What do you feel about that?
I feel exactly what you feel about fascism.
Well, I would really like to know your perspective.
So you would have to define what fascism is. Fascism is, according to me, if you're looking at the technical definition of fascism, the emanation from the 1930s or even possibly before that, Italy. But no, I think, if allow me to preempt what you think, you possibly extrapolated it to the current environment where fascism would be dictating how things go. You become a dictator, you stifle freedom of speech, you arrest people, you don't care for the rule of law. All those things encompass fascism. So only I would say leftists are the true fascists left in this country. No, I said it as a joke, but yeah, I mean, anything that goes for a dictatorial um, idea or ideology is fascist, in my opinion. Trusting your views on others. That's the first, this thing.
And the current party which is in power is no way near to fascism.
No,
They're not.
yeah.
And how
You would have to explain
yeah,
when you ask this question, what do you mean? You have to give example.
yeah.
So, or let me put it this way, and
Okay.
I've said this before, they are as fascist and dictatorial as any other party. And it should not come as a surprise, but it has, that people have started to brand, um, Modi as fascist without realizing that this quote unquote fascism of Modi or fascism of BJP did not exist, or this fascism, as you call it, did not exist with any other party. And that is because of the ignorance of people who do not see, as I said, the first principle of science is prior citation. Has this been done before? And when people perceive Nehru, just to give you an example, they think Nehru is the paragon of freedom of speech and liberty. He protected freedom of speech. Well, if you go back and you actually do read history, you realize that very few, if at all, prime ministers have been as dictatorial and fascist as Nehru. I don't know whether you would believe me or not, but I expect you to believe facts. So Nehru banned 50 books, imprisoned editors, jailed them, banned films, amended the first, our first, Article 19. The first amendment was curtailing freedom of speech. So fascism has its genesis 50, 60 years before what you would perceive as this government as fascist. But the moment you say that, then the biggest tool for people who are not from the science domain is, oh, you are indulging in whataboutery. Whataboutery is important, and I've written about this as well, because it exposes the hypocrisy of people who believe that all this is happening for the first time. You tell them, no, this is not happening for the first time. This has happened before. It's just that you were silent. You are still silent because you have an agenda. You just want to portray Modi as fascist, and you want to whitewash the fascism of every other person. So that's the thing. So to answer your question, BJP is no more or no less fascist as any other party.
So you're basically saying that there is no political party, even if there is another political party which comes into power,
Yes.
that would not be a fascist.
Yes, it come because if you define what fascism is, and I think we did,
Yeah.
curtailing freedom of speech, what was the other thing? Not going by rule of law. In fact, let me even qualify this further. BJP is less of a fascist than other previous governments before it, and even current state governments that are non-BJP. For example, in Chhattisgarh, a person complained of power cut and he was charged with sedition under Congress. The moment on the day Congress came to power in Karnataka recently, on that day, they suspended or even arrested a person who merely said that how on earth is Siddaramaiah going to keep his promises without making the state go bankrupt. That's all he said. He was a teacher. I think he was suspended. So you can say fascism, once you define it, is in our roots. We don't give a toss about it. For example, when Rahul Gandhi says Um, Supreme Court is not a hallowed institution anymore because Modi has ruined it or corrupted it. Um, the only decision of Supreme Court that Modi has overturned, if you look at the previous regimes, they used to overturn Supreme Court decisions at the drop of a hat. I mean, Shah Bano is the famous one, but bank nationalization is another. So many others. Um, the only decision that Modi has overturned was the draconian provisions of the SC/ST Act that the Supreme Court said should be removed, but the government wanted them to be there, and Modi overturned the Supreme Court ruling. But that happened with the yes and nod of every other political party, including the Congress. So when the Congress wants, it doesn't mind Modi overturning the Supreme Court. What does that tell you? That tells you that every decision of every political party in this country is based on its vote bank or its perception of whether it's going to win elections. There's so many cases. I just gave you one example. Farm laws is another example where all the three farm laws were in almost verbatim in the manifesto of the Congress, 2019 manifesto.
That they wanted to implement those farm laws.
In fact, one of the farm laws, the farm reforms, the contract farming, the Congress government in Punjab had already implemented it. Captain Amrinder Singh, it was going on. Congress wanted to go further. It had promised that it will do away with APMC. Modi at least gave choice that you can either go to APMC, which is government mandis, or you can have a private mandi. Congress wanted to do away with it. But the moment Modi implemented those three reforms, Congress said these are black laws, everything, came to a standstill, highways were blocked, protests, anarchy transpired. How did that happen? Did any journalist ask Rahul Gandhi when they say Rahul Gandhi takes unscripted questions and is forthright? And did any journalist in the last 4 years ask Rahul Gandhi, these three laws were in your manifesto? The moment somebody else brings them, why are you calling them black laws all of a sudden? Why are you against them all of a sudden? But that's the way it goes. Every political party does it.
Okay. Also, yesterday was December 6th.
Yes.
And December 6th is one of the very rememberable days for some people, good for some people, very bad.
Yes.
In 1992, Babri Masjid was demolished. Even though, sir, I have heard you so many times speaking about it.
Yes.
But the thing is, there, वहाँ पे timer चल रहा होता है.
Okay.
So, I really would like to know your perspective on this at ease.
Yes.
And with also the current add-on to this question, that right now we are at a stage we are literally going to moon. There are certain developments that have been happening in the country, both from perspective of prosperity and capitalism. There are so many good things happening. Should a lot of energy be focused on such things? Like, I'm not against it, or I'm not saying that I'm completely against it, but it's like if you're spending so much of capital, so much of energy in building something that represents a particular religion, do you feel that in the current time it should be incorporated?
Great question. Sorry, I forgot your name again.
It's Aftab.
Aftab. So Aftab, let me answer it in three parts because
Okay.
you said, sir, take your time. So
Definitely,
I don't
sir.
want people to. So what I've said on this subject before has got me a lot of brickbats from the right. But I have said it at every moment because I choose what I say carefully. But once I say it, then it is for a very long time. And I don't hold myself back. I don't say, oh, I didn't say it like a politician. I don't say, oh, this is in mine. I say it because, I play my own devil's advocate. And before I put my views in public, if I judge them to be, if I find flaws, I correct them and then put them. I don't want anybody else to find flaws in them. So to answer that question about December 6th, I have said this on record, so you can check it. I said, if I was the Prime Minister, if I was PV Narasimha Rao, I would have rebuilt Babri Masjid brick by brick till such time as Supreme Court adjudicated on it. I think it was wrong. It was very wrong for the Babri Masjid to be brought down. And I gave my reasons for that as well. So I get a lot of brickbats. So look at this guy, he wants to rebuild the Babri. See, as a matter of pride, I say this. Um, I am a, although I am a Darwinian atheist, I am a civilizationally, all of us are civilizationally Hindu. And it is a matter of pride that a billion people went and left the decision as to what is to be done to the most holiest of their places, left that decision in the hands of 5 people. I think that is wonderful. The opposite of that is what the left does, indulges in anarchy. So the bringing down of Babri Masjid or any other thing that can be perceived or is historical injustice, the left with aplomb demolishes it without blinking an eye. There are so many examples. You look at, for example, very recently, King Leopold's statue in Belgium. Now, King Leopold, as you know, the butcher of Congo, millions of people in the Congo were butchered by this thing through the rubber trade, through ivory trade and everything. So the left cheered when illegally the statue of King Leopold was brought down, illegally. So the left wants the historical injustices around the world to be corrected, right? Recently, they removed the statue of Cecil Rhodes in Oxford. They want to fight for the rights of the Aborigines in Australia. You look at the Confederacy General, their statues are being brought down illegally. Churchill's statue was vandalized. So the left says, fight and remove historical injustices around the world. But in India, somehow the left wants to glorify historical injustices. And it would not bring down or even want to talk about removing historical injustices that have been perpetrated on the Hindus. And I think that is wrong. You have to be consistent. If you believe that you are against historical injustices, then do it across the board, right? And I firmly believe that, and I have said this before, everything is public, Aftab. I've said this is not a Hindu issue at all. If the holiest of Muslim shrine was demolished and a Hindu temple built over it, I'm quoting what I've said before in public, I would have accompanied my Muslim brothers and sisters to the court to seek justice to reclaim that holiest of Muslim shrines. So this is not about Hindu, Muslim, Christian. This is about correcting a historical injustice that was done. And as a matter of pride, I say this, that a billion Hindus, instead of, now presently going on the streets and vandalizing and demanding what the left does, as you're seeing all around the world, in London and, in New York, everything.
Definitely.
This is ours, we will demand it. Going beyond the law, beyond the reach of the law, as a matter of pride, the Hindus waited for the 5 judges to adjudicate on this matter. I think that was beautiful. So in that context, I said I would have rebuilt the Babri Masjid and waited for the Supreme Court order. That is my view.
Okay. But how about the current paradigm, sir?
Yes.
As in, if
should we be spending more, that's what you said, resources on this?
Yes.
Right? That's what you said. Okay. So couple of things are very important. One is that in any country, during the progress of a nation, things never happen in series, things happen in parallel. So there are hundreds of things happening. I know it's very easy for people to say, oh, why are we going to the moon when 300 million people are earning 30 rupees a day? Why are we spending 1,000 crores on something? Why are we doing this? Why are we building metro when ek waqt khana khila do? I mean, people say this all the time, Where is the need to recarpet the Yamuna Expressway? All that 2,000 crores could have been spent in making a hospital, making a thing. The fact is, a nation will progress only when things happen in parallel. Hundreds of things are happening in parallel. If only one thing was happening at the cost of something else, then yes, there is an issue. But things progress. Now, that is one explanation for why hundreds of things happen at the same time, right? Many people brought this when the Central Vista was being made. They said, oh, what is the need for making a new parliament when, people are dying on the streets and all that. So, without realizing that it was Jairam Ramesh and the Congress that had demanded a new parliament building to be made. In fact, that's the irony of this government. all what this government has done is actually fructify the promises and policies of
That
the
Congress
Congress.
had made.
और मार इनको पड़ती है. But anyway, the other important thing we don't realize is when we talk about, so I've already said that this is a civilizational issue. Correcting historical injustice is important. It is what defines who I am, who we are, So it's not something that is so esoteric or ephemeral that we will completely ignore it. No, this is important for me. And that is what I believe civilizations are. That it is that you hold the memory and the requests and the demands, the fights of your ancestors till such time you are able to realize them. That is what continuity means. That is how civilizations progress. So it's important in that context. And finally, it is also important when you say, why is the government involved in this? Very simply because it is only through Hindu temples, the control of their Hindu temples and the land that the Hindu temples have, the control of that the government is leeching billions of it. So when the government is making so much money, including the present government, making so much money off the Hindus, it is only right that the Hindus demand, by you spend at least a fraction of that money, give it back to us. So when people say, ignoring the fact of Hajj subsidy or iftar parties, I'm not even going into that. When people say, oh, why did the government spend 350 crores in making the Kashi corridor that was recently inaugurated? Well, I say the bi-monthly hundi collections of Tirupati are 700 crores. Okay. The government controls the land through endowment, Hindu Charitable Endowments Act. And as T.R. Ramesh, an activist, has said that what the Hindu temple should get in a year, just in Tamil Nadu, 6,000 crores, the government gets only 60 crores out of the rent of the temple lands that it controls. So even there, the Hindus are losing out by 99% of what they should be getting, what is legitimately theirs. So when Narendra Modi gives a fraction of that in building the corridor, he should be giving much more. And the Hindus are just gullible; they don't realize. They're just happy. Oh, corridor is built. Well, if you give back the reins of the Hindu temples back to the Hindus, they will build 100 such corridors. So on 4 issues, I hope I have answered your question.
So basically, the state, that is the current government,
Yes,
is getting capital out of it. They are investing, but they are getting money out of it. And that thing should be used in a much more better way for the people of the country. That's what you're saying, right?
no, what I'm saying is that the money that is legitimately of Hindus and belonging to the Hindu temples is being controlled by the government. So if the government gives a fraction of that money to Hindu causes, right, I don't think anybody should grudge it, because if we were in a truly secular state, then governments will not be controlling Hindu temples. Secularism means complete and total separation of church and state. Religion should not come into the working of the states at all. For example, the government does not control mosques. The government does not control gurdwaras. The government does not control churches or the land through which the church gets its money from. Why is it that the government only controls Hindu places of worship?
Then why is the government continuously blamed for not being secular? As in, they are termed as nationalist, but they are not termed as secular. Why do you think so?
I don't call them secular, because why are they controlling religious places? Why are they giving salaries to priests and Maulvis? Why are they doing so many other things? Hajj subsidy is one, then iftar parties, sponsoring them, so many other things across religions. Secularism, as I said, means the state has got nothing to do with religion at all. So we are not secular whatsoever. It's a complete spreading of this canard that we are secular. We can say we are plural. We respect all religions and we dabble in the state, but even that is wrong. The state should not get into the domain of religion at all. Why?
How would you define yourself? As a conservative or as a liberal?
Okay, so I don't like the word conservatism because it is anti-science. As I said, मैं science की तरफ से. What does conservatism mean? conservatism by its etymology itself means you want to conserve things. You may think something is good, you want to conserve it. So if you look at, broadly speaking, generalizing, there are conservatives and there are the labor and conservative is the classic definition in UK. Republicans are termed conservatives, kind of, in the America. That is the definition of left and right in France. So generally speaking, conservatives, like the good old days, as they believe, the leftists have termed themselves as progressive, not conservative. The families. So the definition by that means that you have already decided what is perfect, and what needs to be conserved. Science doesn't work like that. Evolution, by its very definition, means that the environment will change. In fact, in the last half hour, we have changed. After our environment has changed, we may not even realize it. Our genes are responding to that by mutating constantly. There are helpful mutations, there are unhelpful mutations, there is adaptability. We are surviving only because of that. If we were to believe that we should not change, we are perfect, that never happens in science. So I'm fundamentally against conservatism, because I don't believe that is actually what leads to evolution, leads to survival. So I'm not a conservative.
That is also a rightist, right? Some people.
Conservatives are, so, they want to preserve things. They think, conserve. That's the definition of that. So I'm not that. That's what I believe. Yeah.
And not even a left liberal.
So that's a complete oxymoron. Liberal, by definition, means that you should be a free speech absolutist, that you should believe, for example, you should not believe in the greater good. Now, if you were to extrapolate what I mean by that, I will bring in this term called social Darwinism. Have you heard of this? Social? Okay. So it stems from Darwinism, theory of evolution that Darwin gave. And people only remember one aspect of the theory, which is survival of the fittest. If you're able to adapt to the environment and you are fitter than the others, you will survive. Well, that's just one aspect of Darwinian theory, competition, adaptability, helpful mutation, accumulating them, and then surviving. So only the fittest would survive. Darwin himself was at pains to inform others that one huge aspect of evolutionary endowment is also empathy. But great empires and imperialists just hijacked Darwin's theory for their own benefit, to say that, we are fitter, we have the guns and you don't. So it is our God-given right, ironically they say this, or Darwinian right, to kill you and to annihilate you. So great continents, great civilizations were annihilated. Churchill was proud that Tasmanian Aboriginals were completely decimated and annihilated, because he said, it is our right. We can lord over you because we are fitter than you. We have the guns, you don't. Darwin said, no, it doesn't work like that. There is a reason why the volume of human brain has increased 3 times in the last 3 million years. It's because of our cognitive abilities, our ability to interact and care for each other. Now, the left, does not believe in free speech. If you look at the traditional left, starting from Marx himself, you look at Lenin, the progression of communism, USSR, you look at 10 million people that Stalin killed, you look at 63 million people that Mao killed, you look at the homophobic mass murderer that Che Guevara was, that Castro, Cuba, Pol Pot, Salot Sar in Cambodia. So left has never believed in liberalism at all. It has preached it, but then,
they were actually fascist, you're saying?
Yes, traditionally they were, so fascism, the term etymology comes from Italy and Europe, but there are a lot of aspects of fascism that can be extrapolated to, as I said, demagoguery, dictatorial attitude, things of that sort. So those are now, it's used loosely now, So yes, Mao was fascist, Stalin was fascist, Pol Pot was fascist, Kim in North Korea is fascist, right? Castro was fascist, so like that. So there is absolutely nothing liberal about
the left liberals.
The left, or even people who like to call themselves as liberal. Liberal means that you respect For example, to give you an example of when we were talking of social Darwinism, which is you extrapolate the principles of Darwinian theory, but just the survival of the fittest, onto a society. And you try and think that whatever I'm doing it for the greater good. That is what is social Darwin, and it is wrong. And both the left and the right do it. There are plenty of examples, Stifling of the Narmada Dam is one of the biggest examples of greater good that the left did for 60 years. Okay, it took 60 years for Narmada Dam and 2 Supreme Court judgments to say that the height of the dam should be increased. And right now, it is providing irrigation to 3 million hectares. It has lit up 3 million homes. It has provided water to 30 million households. So when the left says, oh, we will not build this, and stifles it for 60 odd years, it did it for the greater good because it believed that I am right. I am deciding for you. Whenever that happens, that is true fascism, or whatever you may call it. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Shifting towards the current thing, as in elections that happened recently.
Yeah.
Even though the exit polls were showcasing a very different sort of story, and everyone was like, Congress to aa hi rahi hai, cheeze hil sakti hai, but it got completely changed. As in BJP actually retained in one state and actually won 2 states also.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts about that? Even because I'm asking this in a very critical way, because this was sort of like a semi-final for your 2024 elections that are going to happen.
Yeah.
So what does it represent for 2024 as well?
Yeah, I mean, if you, so I personally was of the belief that it's the Indian public, we give them a lot less credit than what is due to them. So they are able to decide in their mind what is good for a state and what is good at the central level. So even if you look at Karnataka, for example, they may vote for Congress, but when it comes to Lok Sabha, they overwhelmingly vote for Modi. So in Delhi is a great example. I mean, they have completely, Kejriwal has won both times with huge landslides, but has lost 7-0 both times when it comes to Lok Sabha election. So people are able to decide what is good for me at the center and what is good for me at the state. I think that's a very good thing. That augurs very well for the federal structure that opposition is always going on and on about. So I don't believe in the semi-final. To a limited extent, yes, because there is momentum and the BJP itself gets a bit flustered. If it were to lose, then it'll say, oh my God, what's going to happen this time? So, they themselves put a lot less faith in the Indian public than what is due to them. So that's the other thing is that, yes, you're right. Chhattisgarh, even I felt that Congress would come back or retain.
Yeah.
Rajasthan, I was of the opinion that too many wrongs have happened that BJP would win. Madhya Pradesh was neck and neck, but you're absolutely right. Most of the exit polls did not get it to the level that they should have. Why does that happen? There are 2 reasons for it. I think people give a lot less credit to what actually Modi has done in the last 10 years.
At a national level.
At the national level, that has percolated to the states. His famous phrase of double engine. Whenever it comes to state elections, he always goes to rallies and says, "Ye double engine ki sarkar hai." When in UP he said this. Double engine means that we have our central policies and we have the state engine, and 2 engines are better at pulling a train than 1 engine. Now, many people may say that's divisive because, why are you differentiating between a state? A center should spend as much energy or resources to a non-BJP ruled state as it does to a BJP ruled state. That has its point, no doubt about it. But the fact is also there that the non-BJP ruled states have vociferously rejected a lot of central policies and support. A lot of the schemes that Modi wanted to implement in, for example, and should be implemented in non-BJP ruled states, the Congress and the state have got their own alternatives of there. As if to project that, look, health insurance, for example, ki hum Ayushman we won't have, we'll have our own health insurance, things of that sort. So if you look at Madhya Pradesh, that was neck and neck. It's, I think, roughly 80 million population. Astonishingly, 8 million of them 8 million households have now toilets because of Swachh Bharat mission, central policies. 8 million have gas cylinders because of Ujjwala. You have, for the next 5 years, free ration being given that started in COVID. Madhya Pradesh became the first state to be 100% vaccinated. And 25 million people from Madhya Pradesh out of 80 million, which is astonishing, have the Ayushman health card.
But this same double engine government
Yeah.
was there in Manipur and as well in
Yes.
Jammu and Kashmir as well, because there is a bureaucratic rule which is just basically the central government.
Yeah.
So you have two critical states like that also. One UT,
Yeah.
correct with the facts. So things were not going fair
Yeah, so
there.
it's not a set rule. I mean, in Karnataka, to take an example, that double engine was also there in Karnataka, you can say. But then, as I said, winning an election has multiple factors. I just took one factor. Unfortunately, caste and communal lines also play a huge role in it. I mean, in Karnataka, the BJP maintained its vote share, almost 40%. But the JDS vote share completely shifted en masse to Congress, so thereby giving, Congress a huge majority. So things like that happen all the time. I mean, you've seen it in Bihar, for example, where you have shameful post-poll alliances. So there are people who are fighting the elections as adversaries and enemies, and asking for vote because you're against this. For example, the BJP did that, the Congress did that, against JDU, against RJD, and then after elections they come together. The principal example being in Haryana, the BJP did it. It formed the government because it formed an alliance with, I forget the name of the party that it was fighting against. Bihar was a prime example. It sided with Nitish, and now Nitish has come back
Apart
again.
from the politics, sir,
Yeah.
on the humanitarian grounds,
Yeah.
there is literally a naked woman walking in your state, in a double engine ruled state, to say. Still, you are not able to do anything, and you are not even addressing that issue in the parliament. You're merely giving 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Was that justified?
No, that's not justified at all. But again, I would urge the objective people amongst us, including you, to always believe that these things must be condemned, but one must not be selective. Because at the same time, in Rajasthan, a woman who was raped jumped into a well because the police did not act. Around about the same time in Punjab, a minor was raped. The police did not act. There was a huge protest. A police station was taken over. Then people alleged that the police let the perpetrators escape. So yes, if you're saying that law and order is an issue in this country, politicians are corrupt, bankrupt, they overlook these things, I agree with you 100%. But if you are saying that, oh, only BJP is to blame,
No, no,
only
no, no, no.
BJP is to, that is the perception.
That's
because
fascism, basically. That is also you doing fascism.
How?
No, no, not to you,
Yeah.
but as in the people who
Who are
say this,
who are being
who are
selective.
blaming
Yeah.
BJP. But I'm just asking this question from a very, very unbiased perspective.
Of course.
That you are a double engine government,
Yes.
your ideology only.
Yes.
But still, the things which are wrong are wrong.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
And they should not only be not condemned, some action should be taken. I have said it publicly, head should roll, and I've said this again publicly because I appear very frequently on debate. So there's everything that I say out here is I've possibly said before. That it is inexplicable that the Prime Minister has not even commented once on the goings on in Manipur. That's wrong. He should have done it. He does. He comments on a lot of issues. Yes, you can say, must he comment on every issue? But that's subsidiary. He should have commented publicly on this issue. He did it only when he was forced to in the parliament, when the opposition forced a no confidence or whatever. So it was absolutely wrong. He should have done it. But then one must not, in this country, this is what I have learned, go by almost everything blindly as to what opposition alleges one should do, because I've explained opposition is more hypocritical than the ruling dispensation. Unfortunately, that is the case. Opposition supports the ruling dispensation whenever it suits it in a lot of policies that I believe are anti-national. Repealing of the farm laws is an anti-national act, as the biggest as anything I can think of. And finally, opposition more often than not does not explain the roots of, for example, the Manipur issue. It was actually the Congress government that asked for something to be formed way back during the UPA to investigate whether reservations should be given to the Meiteis as opposed to the other tribes. That thing was held in limbo. Then there was a Manipur Congress Sarkar that came in. It was asked, that thing was held in limbo, no action was taken. The BJP government came, it was asked to do this, to find out, give us a white paper on it. No action was taken. This summer, the High Court of Manipur adjudicated on this matter. That is what led to this whole strife. So this is not related to the politicians, this current strife. The inaction, of course, is. But you would never have possibly heard about this. The nub of the issue has been the inaction by both political parties at the center, at the state, BJP and the Congress, and the action that has been taken by the judiciary. People are quiet about it. So, one must go to the bottom of every issue before one.
And how about Jammu and Kashmir? As in, BJP is literally stalling elections there for a long time. Literally, they have been, I guess, 4 to 5 years since the bureaucratic role is existing there.
Yeah.
And there's no actually a people's representative sort of thing that exists there.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts about that?
Right. So, first of all, I would, not that I know you're interviewing me, but I think it's always good, as someone in college said, it's an interview. So it's I'm also permitted to ask your opinions.
Definitely.
Do you think 370 should have been abrogated?
I think some of its attributes that is there, that you were literally separated from the country, you're having a different law, and you are not accepting yourself as a union, was bad. Because even as a nationalist, as a patriot, it feels bad to see that. You're literally the head of the country, and still you're not able to participate or be there as a whole union. So yes, when you see things like this, abrogation of Article 370 looks fair, but there are some other certain things, just like I said, the not having a democratic government, or even, let's say, not literally shutting off internet for 1.5 years for the general public. So things like this are also
so let me
useful.
answer it in two ways. Number one of the biggest evil that 370 did was not that a state has different laws, or you conjoin it with Article 35 so that Indians cannot buy or non-Kashmiris cannot buy property in Kashmir. That law exists for a lot of other states as well. For example, I think Himachal, if I'm not mistaken, non-Himachalis cannot buy property in Himachal. In Nagaland, in a lot of northeastern states, non-residents there cannot buy property. So there are versions of it. That was not the most unjust thing. Left to me, any Indian, of course, the government can bring in rules and regulations as it must, but any Indian should be able to buy property and settle anywhere in India. So according to me, there should be no discrimination, Kashmir or Nagaland or this thing. And I've said this before. The most evil thing of that was that it trampled on the rights, human rights of lakhs of Dalits, of Gurkhas, of Sikhs, of women, because the domicile status was not given. The Dalits could not get jobs that other Kashmiris could get. They could only, for example, the daughter, very famous example was Radhika Gill of this thing, because I talked about it, and one Mr. Ratan Shardaji of the RSS was the first one who opened our eyes to the calamitous draconian discrimination that 370 brought about, was the curtailment of rights for Dalits. They could only get a job as a sweeper. You were not allowed to, even do a PhD. So many other cases like that. And for Kashmiris to live happily like that for 70 years and preach to others about Dalit rights is the biggest hypocrisy one can think of. I include the communists, I include all those people who fight for Dalit rights and who were for the continuance of 370 in Kashmir. But, remove politicians and activists are hypocritical by their very visceral status. So I don't want to go into that. The question you've asked is very valid. because you also support the abrogation of 370, like every sane person should do. Uh, One country, one law, one rule, especially when it was considered to be temporary. This whole provision, especially when the quote unquote assimilation or annexation is the wrong word, assimilation of Kashmir into the independent India was brought about with no special status as so many other 500 odd principalities were brought about. That's historical fact. But when you talk about the curtailment of, let's say, the internet, right? As a free speech absolutist, I have been traditionally against curtailing internet. But you see that now across the board, across state governments where law and order is a state subject, BJP and non-BJP government, the first thing they do whenever there is a riot-like situation is that they shut off the internet, right? Now, when you do it in a BJP ruled state, then you say, oh my God, freedom of speech is being curtailed. When you do it in Chhattisgarh, when you do it in Rajasthan, then you say, oh, well, law and order, you have
Should
to
be
protect that.
maintained.
Yeah. So there should be no double standards is all what I am. I am absolutely critical of this as a free speech absolutist. You should not curtail these things. But then there is the other side that people say, well, in a riot-like situation, if you have the internet, you can very quickly mobilize tens of thousands of people to collect at a spot and then, commit to riot or vandalism. They have a point there, but I am still against it. I am still against it. A very famous thing happened. Remember when Karnataka was, I think, under BJP, and there was something violence against Northeastern in Bangalore. They shut off the internet, and I think the whole controversy started from there. Why you shut it off and all that stuff. A lot of things happen. So this thing is across the board. Somebody has to come in and then say, for example, applying Section 144. People just do it at the drop of a hat. Kuch man kiya, Section 144 laga diya. 5 people cannot, get together at one place. BJP government, non-BJP government, everyone is doing it. That's the first thing that comes to their mind. Matlab riot agar hui bhi nahi hai, don't teach me how to run law and order in my state or at center. This is the first thing politicians do. So, yeah, I mean, if you're asking me, is that completely devoid of the principles of freedom of speech and expression? I say absolutely, 100%. Yeah.
So the removal of Article 370 is something you support,
Yes.
but the way the governance is being conducted in Jammu and Kashmir is
Yes.
something that you don't support.
Yeah, so I would like democratically elected elections, democratic elections as soon as possible. But as I said, like the non-BJP, BJP governments, if the government feels, look, the law and order right now in Kashmir is not conducive to that, and they have been saying this, right? They've been saying it's not conducive to holding a state election. Then I am not at the ground. And trust me, although I completely do not believe the politicians or take them at face value, I am much more prepared to believe the Indian Army and the armed forces when they say things that things are not conducive right now, or to hold the elections, just wait for it. So I'd rather much believe them because they are the experts. They are at the ground. If they believe, then I will go by their word.
Okay. So if for such a random question, I was just waiting for the opportunity to ask you this. Like watching you in so many debates and giving so many political opinions, who is honestly your favorite politician? About Indian diaspora only.
Okay. Right. Off the cuff, my favorite politician.
And just a disclaimer, please don't name PM Modi. Like everyone does it. It's like a safe
Well,
play.
to be honest, if he was my favorite politician, I would have named Modi. But he's not my favorite politician. My favorite politician is not a human at all. He's an alien. Nitin Gadkari, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah, the kind of things he's done, humans are incapable of doing. The astonishing speed at which he works, the professionalism that he exudes, the progress, the data that he is, brought out is just unbelievable. I mean, the man has made half the highways in 5 years that took 70 years to build, and you would not see it immediately. The fruits of his labor. But these are things that give you enormous returns 20 years from now, decades from now, So I would say Nitin Gadkari, but a lot of other people are doing great stuff. There's no doubt about it.
Do you see Nitin Gadkari at the top leadership positions in our country in coming future?
He should be. But again, as I said, and this happens in the lab and anywhere, if somebody who's doing great job, the irony is, or the tragedy is, the person who is above that person keeps giving that person more and more jobs. कहते सर मेरी यही गलती है कि मैं अच्छा काम करता हूँ, सारा काम आप मुझे दे देते हैं. So maybe Nitin Gadkari would say, look, how much more can a man do? So I think he's great at what he's doing. The country needs him to do exactly what he's doing for another 5-6 years, I would say. Remember that he's not only the highways minister, he was given the added responsibility of cleaning Ganga. And trust me, if any person has made more progress than Gadkari in that, it is Gadkari himself. It's astonishing what the guy can do. Yeah.
And you think that if other ministries, let's say Home Ministry or any other ministry, let's say finance itself,
Yes.
which is criticized sometimes in the media,
Yeah.
do you think that should be given to Nitin Gadkari?
Well, I mean, as I said, these are huge ministries, and Nitin Gadkari is handling a huge ministry. He's doing a great job. I think if you were to just give him more and more work, it would just dilute his professionalism. That is personally what I feel. There are so many capable people. Even Miss Sitaraman is doing a very good job, but she is constrained because economy is so precious for vote bank consideration for politicians that they always dabble in it. So I would say majority of the decisions that Miss Sitaraman would like to take but she cannot is because of the finger coming from top above that no, you can't do this. That is not coming to Nitin Gadkari, right? Because PM Modi wants highways to be made, PM Modi wants this progress to be done. So he's not interfering in Nitin Gadkari's work. But if tomorrow, for example, Nirmala Sitaraman would say, look, I am a right winger as far as economic principles are concerned, or I am a believer in Hayek or Friedman's philosophy, not state spending like Keynes. So I would like to privatize the banks. I would like to denationalize everything. I would like to remove all those 1,800 public sector units. Do you think Modi will allow this?
Also, the government is criticized sometimes that it's the PMO basically who is giving all the orders of the execution and not the actual ministries that exist.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not in the upper echelons, or I have an ear on to comment on that. But as I said, the domains where the Prime Minister or the PMO feels are important to quell dissent, to increase your vote share, to win elections, they will interfere. It's not just specific to Modi. People have been doing it ever since politics was there. So, and Gadkari is lucky because PM doesn't find any reason to interfere in what he's doing. To give you another example, I mean, you look at the Foreign Affairs Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I'm 100% sure the PM is giving directions to Jaishankar. Some of the things that he's saying requires a very gutsy, to be honest, and I don't think he would be allowed to say those things if they were not vetted by people who are superior to him. No doubt about it, So
Also, now speaking of this generation that is of AI,
yes,
and the Gen Z crowd coming up more at leadership positions.
Yes.
Like, I have this very curious thought. I just had it sometimes back when I was reading about some political things. Just imagine these three big giants, your Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, and Jeff Bezos getting together.
Yeah.
You have Meta, you have Twitter, you have all the wealth in the world. Just imagine how much you can do. Literally, you can control everything about politics.
That's a leftist dream.
So, about that thing only, this capitalist running everything, do you think that could ever fit in the Indian picture also?
Capitalists running everything. Yeah, I think there is a lot of crony capitalism, no doubt about it. Absolutely. But it is the government's responsibility. It is the courts, the judiciary's responsibility to come up with regulations. So I am for a capitalist society. I am a capitalist. I believe in capitalism. I believe the only way nations progress, it has been shown is through capitalism, not through socialism. Each and every country that professed or that took up socialism or communism has been destroyed, starting from USSR to Venezuela to North Korea. I mean, um, and I am for welfare state, by the way. I believe it is our duty to be a welfare state. Otherwise, people would be wiped out in their tens of millions. And the example is right there in before. If we do not give free health, education, a lot of other subsidies that India gives to its poor, uh, then a lot of people would die, simply die, be wiped off. So it is our moral obligation to be a welfare state. But we have to realize, and we don't because of political expediency, that a welfare state is only possible in a capitalist state. Only through capitalism can you earn money to then distribute. Through socialism, you cannot. Through state control, you cannot. We've seen it time and time again. But we revel in making the mistakes that others have made before. So.
But no way these capitalists or these big leaders who have huge chunk of money with them or a good part of GDP with them
Yeah.
would be anyway interfering in the political decisions, policy making decisions of the country.
Well, if they would like to. So, it depends on their, predilection. If they would like to, then they would. But then whose role is it to stop them from doing so? Right? It is our role, it is the government's role, it is the judiciary's role. Let me give you one example. Um, Elon Musk, okay, he tom-toms himself as a free speech absolutist. Rubbish is not. The other day, Turkey asked him to ban a few Twitter accounts, and he allowed. And his explanation was that I have saved hundreds of thousands of Twitter accounts in Turkey, right, from continuing to be operated by blocking these 100 accounts. Is that freedom of speech? Tomorrow I will say, block Elon Musk. And then I would say, as a justification of that, look, by blocking just one account, I have blocked it, but I have saved a million accounts from prospering on Twitter. That's not freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is from first principles. Those 100 accounts that he blocked, Turkish accounts, were possibly speaking the truth against the government, or were asking for more freedom of speech, more, liberal values, more human rights. They've been blocked because Elon Musk thinks that by blocking just 100, he's allowed 100,000 to prosper. So whose role it was, tell me? Was it Elon Musk's role to just go on and do it, or was it the government's role? So if tomorrow Elon Musk asks for or complies with Indian government's ruling to ban something, I mean, Elon Musk is a non-entity for me as far as this discussion is concerned. He's a hypocrite. What matters to me is what my government is doing, right? So I operate by, as I say this, Anderson razor. You've heard of Occam's razor. I call something Anderson razor. So you know about Warren Anderson, the butcher of Bhopal. And Bhopal 39th anniversary was just 5 days ago. I don't blame Anderson from escaping. That's what criminals do. चोर भागेगा नहीं तो क्या कोतवाल बनेगा? I blame the government that allowed him to escape. So I don't blame Elon Musk. He's a businessman. He wants to run. He wants to make money. That's what businesses do.
So do you think the power is still in the hands of government?
Absolutely, yes.
Capitalists cannot have that power. It's
No.
only the government allows them to have
Yes,
the power.
absolutely, absolutely. The government must. But you've seen how crony capitalism prospers because, and electoral bonds is one example.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm totally against anonymous electoral bond donation. Totally against it. Why am I against it? The reason that the proponents of this anonymous electoral bonds is that if the businessmen were to come out and say we are donating so much money to the Congress or to the BJP, then the opposing parties would, kind of go after them. That is their explanation. That is why it should be anonymous. I'm sorry. The businesses should be large-hearted enough, be brave enough to say, yes, we are donating to this party because we believe in the cause, right? Not to get ulterior motives and some benefits out of that, number one. Number two, how do politicians get elected? Through us. They are asking our vote, right? Right? Now, if tomorrow it transpires that, let us say, as an example, the BJP took 50,000 crores from a mining company anonymously, right? Got elected in Chhattisgarh, right? For protecting the forest, and then suddenly you find that forest has been mined. People won't even know that it is being mined because the BJP took 50,000 crore or the Congress took 50,000 crores from this person because it is anonymous donation. We deserve to know before we vote who has given money to the political parties. That is why I'm against the anonymous thing. So, how is it up to the businessmen to give money? It's never up to them. It's up to the judiciary. It's up to the politicians to decide.
That who are they getting
Yes.
funded
Yeah.
from?
Yeah.
So the funding procedure should be more open.
Absolutely. But see, Congress was protesting this. Did you, for example, know that 8% of the electoral bond anonymous funding is coming to the Congress? Did you know this? You see the hypocrisy. You see, when Congress accuses Modi of being corrupt, and I openly say Modi is corrupt. I am saying this, okay? Others might not. Because I handle corruption, I see corruption not only as a physical act of giving money, receiving money, I also see corruption as looking the other way. And Modi has looked the other way more ways than you can imagine, more times than you can imagine. Not only by inducting corrupt people from other parties, the famous example being Ajit Pawar, who Modi accused of perpetrating a 70,000 crore scam. And then the next day he, formed the government with Ajit Pawar's blessings. But a very famous example where Congress hypocrisy comes through is, you see, the High Court. High Court convicted both the Congress and the BJP. Conviction. I'm not saying it went to the High Court, convicted these political parties with the imprisonment of 5 years to the party top leader. Okay. For violating the FCRA regulations when it comes to party funding. Conviction tha ye. What did BJP do? This happened in 2014 winter, I think. BJP went back to the emergency era, 1976, amended the FCRA Act, thereby rendering the High Court conviction toothless. High Court couldn't do anything. The act was amended by the parliament. Now, if I'm accusing the BJP of being corrupt, right? If I'm the opposition, I would hit the streets. I would say this is the biggest example of corruption, where you have amended a present act just to escape conviction and imprisonment. Can you tell me why Congress didn't do it? Because the Congress supported the amendment. The Congress sided with the BJP in amending the FCR Act because the Congress was also convicted. Has anybody asked Rahul Gandhi this when he accuses others of corruption? So that's why I'm saying, if you get swayed by one politician or the other, then you are being run by them, to be very honest with you. Just love the country or science ki taraf se raho. That's the...
So your message to everyone is this: science ki taraf se raho.
Yes, but I want to ask you, Aftab, we've had this podcast for an hour. What is your opinion about me after an hour and what was it before? Be honest, like I am.
Okay, so if I'll be really honest,
Yes.
there is a media which portrays you as a Sanghi.
Okay.
And you must have encountered
Of
this
course,
a lot.
Yes.
But honestly, I think in a dynamic country like India, it's not about being a Sanghi or a leftist liberal or whatever it is. It's more about what are your facts about. If you're on camera praising Modi and also saying that Modi is corrupt, that literally means that you have done your homework. Which pretty much not all the people, especially our generation, Gen Z, is not willing to do.
Thank you. And this is why I say, when people come and ask me, sir, are any questions off limits? Others may not have given this podcast. People do their research and find out, and they're very selective about whom they talk to. The selectivity stems from the very top, Modi, starting from Modi, who hasn't given an interview, unless he picks and chooses. But I talk to you because when people say, sir, are any questions off limits? I said no. As long as no answer of mine is off limits.
Okay.
So I hope you would run this
unfiltered.
Unfiltered, and that is how I want it. And thank you very much. I really enjoyed this.
Just one last question to you.
Absolutely, sure.
With this whole thing that you have with you, this scientific mind, this research-oriented mind, and obviously the political analytical mind कि science की तरफ से हूँ.
Yes.
If you were given a position more of like an execution, not a politician, more of like in a bureaucratic setup,
Okay.
would you choose that? And if you choose that, what would you do the first thing for this country?
Yeah, you've seen that film Nayak. I used to love that film. No, well, I love what I do. I love
Okay.
what I do, and I'm not going to change even an iota of how I am. And I have come to believe this increasingly. So I'm very grateful for a lot of love and affection that people have given me. And I consider myself as completely inconsequential, like a bacteria that is growing in the plate right next to you. Absolutely inconsequential, out on Earth because of a chance event that happened 4 billion years ago. So, and that is, I would say that is my strength. I'm not trying to be self-obsessive and kind of being patronizing towards others, each to his own. But because you asked me this question, in whichever domain I go, I will be exactly the same. So it follows, if I go into a political domain and if I'm exactly the same, I'll be sacked within a day. So what's the point?
So the decisions that you will be taking
Yeah.
will be so you say raging the
Yeah,
crowd.
I will take them in half a day. I have the decisions on the back of my hand. I will do cut, 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 cut. In America, you have these presidential orders, right?
Yeah.
In India, you don't have these orders. In America, you do. 15 ऑर्डर मैं ऐसे साइन करूंगा 15 मिनट के अंदर. Because if you are discussing politics, if you're living it, you know the issues. And if you are reasonably intelligent, you know the solutions as well. Now, many of those quote unquote presidential orders might be struck down by the High Court or the Supreme Court, whatever, but I'll make them. And hence, I will be sacked within not just 24 hours, maybe 24 minutes.
You definitely plan to recreate Nayak movie. So I guess, sir, that was also all from my side.
Thank you so
I
much,
really
Aftab.
happened to enjoy this conversation. I hope you did too.
I really did. I absolutely did.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
And my
for-
best wishes, if I can say, to Hindu
Definitely.
College. I absolutely enjoyed, although unfortunately I was from the college across the road. But
Saint Stephen's.
yes, I know all the memorable slogans that Hinduites used to use when they used to rag us, starting with SSC sitting on a tree. I won't complete it. But I've thoroughly enjoyed my years living in the res and stealing ourselves away to Hindu college canteen that had better food and a lot of things. So my best wishes to your college. Absolutely loved it.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for that.
Pleasure.